In this video, I'm looking at a program that uses Python and Flask, and it's going to use that to pass some JSON data through Jinja to JavaScript. So here's like the page I made. It has like a form and a handler, and there's got a lot of aspects to it. But the aspect I want to talk about is that this drop-down list when the user chooses a new comforter style, then an image and some information about that style is shown. And this, if we right click and view the page source, there is up here in 23 to 27 here, there is just a script that is basically a data and then a console log of the data. So I could have shown you that in the console log. And then down here, there is some JavaScript for uh, for displaying the information. So when there is a change handler for the drop down, and then it takes some data and shows as you change the image, as you change your choice, change the image, change the display of the data. And there's also sort of a triggering of an event here, a new event and a dispatch event to sort of show the first. So when the page comes up, it's like the user has chosen a comforter. Okay. And so again, I'm not interested in the details of the JavaScript or much of the Flask, but the just the passing of the information over to the JavaScript. So that's what I want to show. Okay, so most of the form starts over here in WT-Forms, and so that's where the drop down gets its start. So there's a select field with a label comforter styles, and the choices are just an empty list for now. So I have two Pythons here. That in this Python there are no choices. And then over here in more of the routing part of the Python, but that's where I am getting the information. So I have a a data file here, comforters JSON, that has all the information about my styles and so on. So back to here. So I am reading that file here in 14 and getting that information, comforter data, and I am using a list comprehension here to make my set of choices. So this is more the Flask Python WT form side of things. But here, so I'm reading the data in app comforters and preparing the choices. And here I'm going over to comforter form. And I have some cookie stuff. And that's not what we're interested in here. Uh, I am sending the information over. Where are we at? I have, that's the handler. Where is here we go. I am sending, when I go to the comforter form, I am sending over comforter data, which came from reading the file. So I've read the file, and there was a Flask aspect to it where I made it a sort of a list of tuples to correspond to the choices. And I've talked about that in other videos. But here, I'm also passing that raw data over, and I'm not, so the choices are going to be handled by the display of the choices in the drop-down list. That's going to be handled by the WT forms and the Flask and the Python. But this part here, sending over the comforter data, that's going to be handled by Jinja, and that's where I'm going to prepare the data to be put in a JavaScript format. and it's JSON, so it's very sort of JavaScript ready, if you will. Okay, so I'm going over to Comforter Form. So let's go to Comforter Form. And then up here, I have that script we saw at the top. So we looked, we had the web page up, we looked at, and there was a script and it had the data. And this is where that data is being formed. So I have these curly, that is Jinja. Now it's sort of giving me red squiggly saying, I don't recognize this notation, but I can get Visual Studio Code to recognize that. Now I probably have some like better Jinja. So I have a number of extensions over here. But in addition, I can come down here, and right now it's sort of because of that it's an HTML file, it's saying let's understand it as HTML. And then within HTML, it understands uh, things like JavaScript. The JavaScript sort of naturally goes within HTML, but here we're confusing it because we're mixing JavaScript and Jinja, but we can get it to view it that way. So I click down here in Visual Studio on the HTML, and then I get this long list, and I want to say this is Jinja and JavaScript, sort of a more unusual combination, but let's choose it. And then those sort of red squigglies go away. It's sort of Visual Studio Code is now saying, oh, I understand what this is now. And I'm taking Comforter data, which was being brought over, and using a vertical bar, and I'm in Jinja right now, and to JSON. And so this is sort of casting that data, which was JSON, but we don't quite know what WT-Forms did to it. But now it is being cast as sort of, I don't know, pure JSON, I'll say. And then I'm letting it, so this let my data equal, that's JavaScript. And then we have this curly, that's Jinja, and we're taking that data that we passed over. We are casting it as JSON, and then I just console logged it out. But we looked at the page itself, sort of behind the scenes, so we saw what the data looked like. So I don't need to open up the console. And that's really what I wanted to show is that how to pass data. Um, so I had this data, then I wanted to use both sort of server side with Python and Flask and WT Forms, but I also wanted to use it on the client side. I didn't want every time the user chose a new bed, I didn't want to sort of go up to the server for that. So I only want to go up to the server when they're sort of placing an order. And so I wanted some JavaScript. I wanted the JavaScript to have the sort of same data that some of the stuff on my server had. And so I wanted to pass that information over to JavaScript. And this is a way to do it. Uh, so I have Jinja. I sent the data over from the app. Again, here was that data being passed. And then here's that data being using Jinja to cast that information in the right form so that it can be put into a JavaScript format, and then uh, down here used by this JavaScript script to display this information and change the picture as the user changes the style. Okay, that's what I wanted to show in this one, just this little bit. It's a larger program, but I wanted to show this aspect of the data being passed and then used as JavaScript. So one more time, just show, and here was the heart of the matter, the Jinja passing the information. And so I had moved to a different file and back, and so I'm back out of that language mode. I moved out of that Jinja understanding JavaScript mode, and so I'm back to it being uh, red squiggly underlined. But we saw that it was proper code once Visual Studio understood it, and we also saw it working from the start. Okay, that's what I want to show you in this one. Thanks for your attention.